everyone. Thank you for joining me here at the Heroic Dose. And I want to say also thank you, and I appreciate all of your comments showing me love, support, encouragement. I've been reading them all. I'm trying to respond to them when I have time. And I want you guys to know that from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everyone that's here for me right now. Every single one of you. I do. I spent a long time alone. Just completely alone. So to have so much support right now, it feels like it's coming just in time, like right on time. This is when, if I ever needed it, it's actually now. So thank you. The purpose of today's video, I want to talk about my mom and my father, more of their story and where they are now. I see a lot of people are interested in that, so I'd like to get around to that, and I guess that's what today is about. I'm going to start out with my mom. So you guys saw my interview with Mark, and I gave a little bit of her backstory. She was abused by her father and her mother up until she was 14 years old. And then when she was 14 years old, she was given away to my father. And I say given away because that's what happened. She didn't have any say in the matter. Her parents drove her from Michigan to Florida to meet my father and give her away to him. And so she told me, like, the day she met my father, he pulled up driving his uncle's car to their motel somewhere in Florida, and her dad told her to go get in the car with him. And so she went to go get in the back seat, and her dad was like, "No, dummy, go sit in the front seat. You're supposed to be in the front seat." And my mom told me, like, she didn't know my father at the time. This was her first time meeting him. So she didn't have that type of familiarity with him to where she would sit in the front seat with him. She didn't know. She didn't know that was going to be her husband. She didn't know she was being given away. And that's how it started. And she got in the front seat with him. And he started abusing her that same night. And she didn't leave him until she was 27. So, it did a number on her. It really did. When I think about the length of time of what I went through with my father, and to know the first 27 years of my mother's life was hell, like, it puts it into perspective, the scope of the damage done to her. It's taken me, I'm 34 now, and I feel like, it's taken me my whole life thus far just to heal from my childhood. And that's not, counting anything else that happened afterwards, as I became an adult, as a prostitute. There's a lot of the trauma that comes along with that, but it's like I haven't even had a chance to deal with that because I'm going on a rant. I'm going on a rant. Let me stop. So we're talking about my mom. So she, 27 years, okay? Her mental state was not the best, and it's understandable. My father really is a monster. I told you, we didn't speak. She didn't speak to me. We were as quiet as possible to not attract his attention more than we wanted to. I have this memory where we are walking towards a bridge, and we end up on this overpass, like overlooking a highway. And I asked my mom about it recently because I've been interviewing her for my book. And I'd also like to add her interviews on here somehow. She said it's okay. It's okay for me to put her interviews on my channel. I'd like to whenever I figure out, you know, more editing and when I get better at this, I'd like to do that. Some of the interviews they're pretty powerful. And so I'm asking her, you know, about this bridge, like why do I have this memory? And basically, my mom took me and my sisters up to this bridge overlooking a highway because she was going to throw us off and then jump off and kill herself as well. And she said when we got up there, no cars were coming, so she had some time to think, and it was, you know, too much time. She said she couldn't do it. She couldn't throw us off and then kill herself. And then she said she couldn't kill herself and then leave us behind. So we went back home. But that's how desperate she was. Like, we would have been just, the synopsis of our lives would have been like a news story. You know, some crazy woman kills her daughters and then kills herself. They jumped off a bridge. And that would have been the synopsis of our lives. Like, nobody would have known what led up to that and what we were going through. And here we are today. So that was my mom's mental state when she was with my father. She was just so beaten down. Well, because that's what happened to her. She was, you know, I watched her. I watched the physical abuse that she endured, and it was horrific. It really was. You know, I was there. I was her witness. And so afterwards, when she left him and we had our own apartment and everything and we were safe, she fell into drugs and alcohol, and pretty bad, and but she, you know, she was dealing with a lot of trauma, 27 years of trauma, day in and day out. There was not one good day. Every day was the dark as hell when we lived with my father. So to see, you know, how damaged she was, you know, I was a witness to that. So she went from, you know, abusing drugs and alcohol just for a couple of years, and then I went into foster care. She left him when she was 27, I was 7, and then I went into foster care when I was 10. And she was doing okay, I guess, around that time, but I guess not good enough because she got a kid taken away from her. They took me away. The reason they took me away, they said it was because of neglect, because she was never home. Yeah, that was true. That was true. I wouldn't see her for days sometimes. And then she'd just pop in and out just to give me money. She was working a lot, but she was also partying hard outside of the working. And so then my sisters went into foster care a couple of years after I did. I think my mom, you know, just continued to kind of have a mental breakdown. And I feel like at a certain point, I kind of pushed her to her limits. The summer that I was 12 years old, I got to go home. Like, they told me I was getting out of foster care and yeah, like, I'm at home now. I'm like, oh, hooray, this is where I wanted to be. I didn't like foster care anymore, been there, done that. That was not a good decision on my part. I'm at home now. But I didn't, I was going through my own trauma, and I didn't know how to act right. Like, I didn't. I was getting in trouble all the time. I was only home a month, and I think the cops have been called on me at least 5 or 6 times already. Um, I was just raising hell, giving my mom a hard time. And so she called CPS and told them to come get me so I could go back into foster care. She said, come get her. And while you're at it, come get the other two as well. The other two being my two older sisters. So that was when they went into foster care as well. And at that point in time, my mom just kind of had a breakdown and gave up, like, on life. She, like, quit her job, maxed out all her credit cards, quit paying the rent, let her car get repoed. And then she was just off in the wind, trying to figure out her life. She was all over the place, New York, Florida, Texas, different parts of Michigan. There was years when I didn't see her. I didn't know where she was at. And I was working through my own animosity, that I had for her. I was bitter, I was angry, I was mad, for I was mad because she didn't protect me. I was mad because she took too long to leave my father. Like, I know I was young, I was 7, but for me, she waited too long, like it was too late. And I would tell her that, like, it was too late. When I first went into foster care, and she did come to my supervised visits, I would ask her questions all the time about different memories I had, and like, why were things this way? Why was this? Why this? Just a little example. Our house was extremely dusty when we were living with my father. Like, you could just run your finger around everywhere and just dust everywhere. And I know I said we didn't have any running water, but it was dustier than that. The cobwebs were out of control. And I asked her, like, why was our house so dusty? Because when we moved into our own apartment, she was a clean freak. Everything had to be clean all the time, bleach everywhere, like constant headache from cleaning fumes. Like, she was obsessive about it. So I'm like, okay, so this is how you live. You're super clean, but why was it really dusty over here? And she told me that my father had broken her glasses over her face, and she's legally blind without her glasses. And then he took them from her and wouldn't even allow her to wear them anymore. So she said she couldn't even see the dust. She was just blind. So I would, ask her questions like that, just trying to figure things out all the time. And so I kind of knew a lot about her past and the years that we weren't talking. So during that time, I had a lot of time to think about her and think about what she had been through in her life. And then she would pop up here and there. And then I think around the time that I was 18, I started seeing a little bit more of her. She was coming around more. This time she was staying in Michigan, not staying put. She was moving around a lot, but she was in Michigan. And I'd go looking for her, and I'd find her and, spend some time with her. But I really didn't see her maybe but once or twice a year, not that often. Then when I was in my early 20s, my mom, I think I was 20. She decided to settle down. Like, she became stable. She started her own business. She bought a house. She had a car with like a car note. She seemed pretty stable to me. And I was proud of her. Like, I felt like she had come a long way, because I'd watched her pretty much be I don't know, what's a word for somebody that travels around with no stability? A vagrant? I don't know. 'Cause she did cause trouble some places sometimes. I don't know, but I'd watched her go through all that. I'd watched her life with my father, and then I saw how she was afterwards. So to see her with some stability finally, I was happy and I was proud of her, and I didn't know enough about it though. But that's what I saw, and that's what I thought. My mom is stable now. She's good now. That's what I thought. And then she moved down to Mexico, um and she moved down to Mexico because she married a Mexican man, and he wasn't allowed to be here. Like, he got caught too many times crossing the border, and the last time he got caught crossing he got caught here in the US. He got caught in Michigan. They spent 3 years shipping him down to the border through the prison system as like a lesson. Don't come back, or this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to be in prison. So she sold her house, sold her business, and drove down to Mexico. She bought land down there and built a house. And I still looked at her as stable, because I'm like, she's following her husband. He can't be here, so she's doing what anybody does when they're in love and they're married, I guess. I would move countries for somebody, maybe. um so obviously down there, that marriage, I think it was her fourth or fifth marriage, it didn't work out, but she decided to stay down there, and she got into a bit of trouble. She got caught bringing 27 pounds of marijuana into the US, and she was facing several years in prison. And she decided she couldn't do prison time, so she is currently in Mexico, I guess a fugitive, because she doesn't want to be in prison here in the US, but she is a United States citizen. And that's where her journey has brought her. That's where it's brought her. When I took my kids down there for that summer so that she could watch them for me, the stability that I had seen her have in Michigan, with the house, the car, her own business, it kind of, I don't want to say fooled me, but it made me think, okay, so I was doing, my own internal healing, and I was on my own, journey internally. And I kind of thought my sisters and my mom were doing the same thing and taking the same steps. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought we were all, getting better as the years were going on. And so that's what made me think it was okay to take my kids down to my mom so they could stay with her. I thought, I assumed that she was healed. I assumed she'd been doing all the work I had been doing. And I thought we had all learned by now to, stay away from pedophiles, triple check, like, make sure. And that wasn't the case. And then even recently, since I've been interviewing her, we've been talking more, because I've kept my boundaries with her. I've kept a lot of boundaries with her. Because I love her and I've forgiven her. But today, for who she is today, sometimes I'm still hurt that she can't be there for me, like as a mother. And I'm like, I know I'm 34, but sometimes I'm like, I still need a fucking mom. Like, I need somebody to tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. So, but like when I talk to her, I put that aside. I put those feelings aside because I know her story and I know why she can't be there for me. I know why she can't be who I need her to be. So I forgive her. And when I talk to her, I just make sure she knows that I love her and that I care about her. And I do remind her all the time that I forgive her and she doesn't need to feel guilty or bad about anything, because sometimes she does bring it up. She talks about killing herself, and it worries me. And I just try to tell her what I can. I still love you. And I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be crying all over this video. That's not what this is about. But even now today, when I've been interviewing her for my book since this past year, I'm learning more and more about her and where she's at on her journey. So like for example, when she told me about her father she told me when he was incarcerated. And she said, yeah, he's doing a couple years in prison for touching a little girl, but I don't think he did it. And I'm like, wait a minute. You don't think he did it? He touched you. He touched me. He raped his little sister and she killed herself 2 weeks later. But you don't think he did this? And she said, well, my mom doesn't think he did it. And I'm like, but what do you think? Because there's the problem right there. Even now, all these years later, she's 54 and she's still brainwashed by her parents, still trying to win their love, still full of respect for them. And as we've been talking, I guess I've been helping her to think more and asking her questions about the past. And it's been healing for my mom to answer my questions as I'm writing my book, and for her to see things from a different perspective. Like, she told me a story about her going to foster care when she was 13. And she told me a story about the day she got out of foster care, actually, when her parents came to pick her up at her foster home. And she said while she was in foster care, the first thing she did was shave her legs, because her mother did not allow her to shave her legs, even though she allowed her 2 younger sisters to shave their legs. And she said when her parents came to pick her up in her foster home, the first thing they noticed, she said, first my dad noticed, and then my mom noticed, was that I had shiny, skinny legs or something. They were shaved. And I'm like, do you understand that your mom didn't let you shave your legs because she was jealous of you? Because that's what it was. Every story she tells me, like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like her mother is a jealous, vindictive woman. And at the time, when my mom's telling me the story, like, she's not, I guess, aware enough to see these things. And so I try to bring things to her attention, to get her mind going. And so we started having these types of talks a year ago, and now today she's still starting to understand that her parents don't love her, because they still treat her like trash. And it's it's just shocking to me that my mom she's 54 now, and I guess it's not shocking if the first 27 years of her life were hell, to see her at 54 and she's still struggling to figure it out and figure out what happened to her. But I feel like she's made a lot of progress this past year, and I'm gonna keep helping her, because I don't want her to. I know she's in a shitty situation down there in Mexico, and I can't answer any questions, about if I help her or not, for legal reasons. But I don't want her to kill herself down there. So yeah, that's my mom, and that's her journey. That's where she is right now. She's in a crappy situation in Mexico. Like I said, she's facing prison here in the US, and just is like, prison is not for her. And that's true. She's got my mom still has a lot of socialization issues. Yeah, it's hard for her to be around people. It's hard for her to be told what to do. And she has a PTSD from it. But she's getting better. I'm gonna move on and talk about my father. It feels weird to say my father, because when I was a kid, I called him Daddy. And when I afterwards talking about him, I would still call him Daddy until I don't know when. But now when I talk about him and I talk to my mom or my sister, I call him by his first name. But on here, I'm gonna refer to him as my father. And I refer to him as my father in my book as well. He was abused as well, by an aunt and an uncle. I'm not sure if his grandmother abused him, but for sure an aunt and uncle did. And, they did heinous things to him. A lot of physical, sexual abuse, and starvation as well. It's funny, I was talking to my middle sister, and she thought that we were starving because we were poor. Like, she thought it was because of, our poverty. And I had to tell her, like, no, we weren't starving because we were poor. We were starving because he starved us, because he wanted us hungry. We lived in the conditions that we lived in because that's what he wanted. He wanted us to live like that. My mom told me her first night with him, he was interrogating her, kind of asking her what kind of life she had had with her parents, like what kind of house she grew up in, stuff like that. And he told her that with him, she's going to find out that life is not a bowl of cherries. And he meant it. He meant it. He was miserable, and he wanted everybody around him to be miserable as well. I guess his family. He wanted us to be miserable because he was miserable. Everything he did to us, it was on purpose. And I understand what happened to him. And how it directly correlates to what happened to me and my mom and my sisters. because I guess, the same thing happened to me. He learned how to abuse in a certain way. And when I was a kid, I learned how to abuse in a certain way as well. My anger that I had, everything bad about me, I learned from him. So I understand how he learned. But he hasn't changed either. He's still the same person too. Along with all the other abusers I know, like my grandfather, he's in his 70s still doing this shit. There's quite a few that are still doing this shit. And I say still doing this. So this was back in 2011. Some detectives from Alabama came up to Michigan to interview my sisters, me, and my mom to figure out why he down there, that community figure down there, because he always found a way to, ingratiate himself with community leaders and religious leaders and, whatnot. They wanted to find out why he had 3 grown daughters and an ex-wife that do not speak to him and will not speak to him. And they wanted to know why, because he'd been working at a group home down there in Alabama, or volunteering at one, and a boy there accused him of sexually molesting him. And so when the detectives came to ask us questions about him, like right away, we were all ready to speak out, and we did. We were like, he did this, this, and this, and this. He's a bad fucking man. Like, he's terrible. Like, he broke my nose, I don't know, at least 3 times. Like, you see that? I'm in the gym. I'm pissed off at my dad sometimes because I can't breathe. I only have one nostril. He broke my ribs on my left side. They stick out at a funny angle. I never went to the hospital. Like, I'm still carrying around scars from my childhood. My mom is covered in scars from him. And, we told the detectives everything. But it was all for naught. The boy at the group home, he had a history of lying. And so they decided not to believe him. Or us, I guess. They didn't believe us either. So nothing came of that. And that was back in 2011. So I know a lot of people want to know, like, if he's in prison, if he's been prosecuted, like, have I sought justice? And no to all of it. He's alive, well, living in Alabama, fat and happy, surrounded by his family. I haven't spoke to him since that summer in Alabama when I was 10. But I know that he's, alive and well and happy, because I'm friends with some of his family members on social media. And so once in a while, a picture of him will pop up, on one of my feeds. And, I try not to look at them. And his family knows. I visited his family when I was in my early 20s. I was trying to figure out where I came from, I wanted my own people. And so I went looking for them. And some of those people that I told everything to, they were visiting him not even 2 months ago. And but I knew it was going to be like that. I knew. One of my cousins, directly after I was done telling them why they grew up without us, why they grew up not knowing me or my sisters, and why they never heard anything about us ever. After I got done telling them what my father put us through, what he did to me, my sisters, and my mom, one of my cousins said, well, that's still my uncle, so I love and respect him. And that's how generational trauma continues. That's exactly how it continues. Well, it's one way, because I understand that I contributed to it in my own way. But that's another way, when you have family members sweeping it under the rug for you. When these people should be outcasts. So that's I guess that's it for today. That's the update on my mom. She's a fugitive in Mexico. It's crazy. Uh, and she's mentally, she's, she's on her way. She's on her way, but she's only ever, I want to explain something about my mom because of everything that she went through. She's fully functional. She's not slow. She's not dumb. But she's a little funny, like up here. And I think it's from maybe all the concussions she sustained, most likely. And all the trauma too. I feel like she's strong. She's strong to have gotten through it all. I know there was a time when I thought that she was weak, and I feel bad for even thinking that about her, because she's actually really fucking strong, because she's still standing here. And I know what that's like when one person can take away your will to live for the rest of your life. And so the fact that she's made it to 54, she's strong. She's strong, and she's on her way to healing. And my father, he's still the same person he's always been. Do I want to pursue justice? I don't know if I could do it on my own. I think I might need my sisters for that. And yeah, I would definitely need some support, like more than just me. And because that's, that's a hard thing to do. It's been hard to write my book and bring up all of my past. And I honestly try not to think about my father, because I don't want him living in my head. He took enough away from me. I guess that's it. I'm sorry for getting all crybaby on you guys. But thank you for listening. I plan to make more videos about, more about me, my sisters, my kids. Eventually, when I get some better equipment or something, I'd like to interview people when I learn how to edit and, all that type of stuff. So I plan to do a lot with this channel. And so I want to say thank you again, everybody that's here, supporting me and listening. And I appreciate it. And again, your questions are always welcome. Thank you.